I just struck by the online donation plea from CSE saying, we're fighting every day. And friends, we're fighting every day. We're fighting every day to protect children. So, Barb, can I ask you some questions? And we'll open it up if any of our panelists want to join in too. So how widespread is this, Barb? I mean, you covered a lot of ground, but I think we should reiterate. I know when the Child Protection League did just a cursory survey of schools in the Twin Cities, we found that book It's Perfectly Normal in 27 schools. And, that was just, when we stopped calling. I mean, we didn't call all of them. And so clearly it's all around us in terms of that book. But what do you know about how widespread this is?
Well, I would say it is in virtually every school district. And sometimes if you find out that there's not much of concern in the curriculum, you have to dig further and find out what resources the teachers are using, and also find out what the outside speakers are, who they are bringing into the classroom. I remember at one health education conference that they told the teachers, if you don't feel that you can teach these kinds of materials, just ask us, Planned Parenthood, to come in and we can teach this to the kids. And then if there are any complaints from the parents, you can blame us. The teachers can say, I didn't know that they were going to teach this. So you have to look more than just at the curriculum materials themselves.
Right. Folks, this, we've been fighting this battle for so many years, and it just keeps coming back. But I want to bring you back to the legislation that's going through the Minnesota House today and point out that is a mandate on all schools to teach this. So, if you think, well, my school is okay because, I've looked at the curriculum and it's pretty good, this is the assault that's coming on your children, because the authors of this bill, which is now in the Education Omnibus Bill, makes it much more difficult to hold legislators accountable for voting for it, is going to force that mandate on your school to include all of what Barb just talked about in the curriculum, the model curriculum they are putting forth. Hey, Barb, let me just play devil's advocate for 1 minute and ask you, how do you respond to the statement that we repeatedly hear? We need to teach safe sex because kids are gonna, they might do it anyway, and they need to know how to protect themselves.
Well, first of all, safe sex is an absolute illusion, and there is, then you would ask that person, what kind of protection are you going to give these kids? First of all, there's no condom for the heart, and we see these girls with all of this emotional, psychological damage from being used with boys and giving themselves away, and until they just are into depression and cutting because they've gone so far so many times. Plus, as you can see, what I talked about too, with diseases that are spread by skin-to-skin contact, the condom's not going to protect them from that. So, and with that, we see this high STD rate. So where is the protection? There is none. And we need to get back to teaching our kids that they need to learn self-control. And that's the only way that we're going to reduce the number of STDs. And with our young people, they need to learn that it is possible to save sex for marriage. We weren't always this way in this country. And in fact, back in 1960, there was a survey done by the Kronhausen, and they surveyed college students, and they found that Joe College was typically a virgin. And like I said earlier, even Hugh Hefner was until he read the Kinsey reports. And that back in college in 1960, oral sex was rare and anal sex was unheard of. So it's not like this has always been a part of our culture. And we need to get back where we have a real, start teaching our children what is right and have expectations for them. Because right now we've lowered the bar and they're living up to our expectations, which is anything goes. And so they need us to believe in them and give them good choices and reasons why to save sex for marriage, and not give them information how to perform and seek pleasure, because more kids are going to start trying these behaviors.
It's obvious that when you teach kids, and here they are, they're in the classroom, they're trusting you as the teacher, their parents are telling them to trust you as the teacher, and the teacher is exposing them to homosexuality, to transgender ideology. It's not a wonder that we're seeing an increase. Right now in the medical community, there's a term for rapid onset gender dysphoria. This shouldn't surprise us at all, that when you normalize this kind of behavior, you're going to get more of it, and that's what we're seeing. Hey, Barb, it used to be that we, maybe never, I don't know, but I used to think anyway that you could go to the Minnesota Department of Health and get good information. Is that a good place to go?
Well, it's not, especially when you see that they are promoting it's perfectly normal. I mean, that book is just like that. One attorney said it's cartoon pornography, and you would not want any child to get their hands on it. And when you show it to adults, they don't even want to look at it. When we brought it in to show to legislators, they just turn away. And it is something that is just violating the minds of kids. And yet that is considered a good resource by the Minnesota Department of Health. I mean, what's wrong with them? I think they need to clean up their resource materials that they have there. You will not find good abstinence until marriage curriculum, because they're all promoting this comprehensive sex education. One thing that's interesting, calling it comprehensive when it really doesn't contain some of the information it should. I remember when I was speaking to college students at the University of Minnesota, and I asked them to raise their hand if they had had comprehensive sex education, and everyone in the class raised their hand. Then I asked them if they knew what the transformation zone was on the cervix of a young girl, and not a single person raised their hand. They did not realize that a young girl is biologically vulnerable to sexually transmitted diseases more than an older woman and more than males, because she has just one layer of cells on the cervix. And when she gets into her 20s, those layers develop and become thicker and are more resistant to bacteria and viruses. But a child aged 14 and 15, they're not resistant to bacteria and viruses. That's why they are so prone to sexually transmitted diseases. None of them had ever heard that, yet they all had taken comprehensive sex education.
Dave, could I make a comment here?
Go ahead, Julie.
No, I just wanted to mention that all of this is, as you said before, is being mandated through this legislation. And, there is something very specific that we can do to stop this bill. And that's sometimes it's hard to know, okay, what do we do exactly? This is a really key time right now, because we actually have something very specific we can do. If you check on our Facebook page, Child Protection League Facebook page, we have a copy of the latest update that we put out. If you don't get our emails, you didn't see it, but it's got action item there to contact a couple of different senators to make it a real high priority that they keep this language out of the omnibus education bill that they negotiate together, in this legislative session. They need to know that it has to be a high priority for them to keep it out, because it is in the House version. And so it is being negotiated now. So it's a very specific action item. And, I would say the two people in particular who would be important to contact would be the chair of the Senate Education Committee, who is Carla Nelson, and the majority leader, the Senate Majority Leader, Paul Gazelka. But that information, like I say, is on our update on our Facebook page. And I think that it's good to know that people can actually do something, because Planned Parenthood will be brought in to teach these things, these programs, and the programs have to include this. But the bill specifically says that outside groups can be brought in, community groups can be brought in to teach this this material. Right now, I've heard complaints just today from the Duluth area that Planned Parenthood has come in 4 days, just one today, and I don't know, what the dates were in the other ones, but they're coming in to teach their kids sex education in Duluth in the high school, and they're very upset about it. So it's happening already, and you can go to your school district and complain. If this legislation passes, you can't go to your school district to complain because they're required to do it. So it's a here and now sort of thing right now.
Mm-hmm. And I will put Senator Gazelka and Nelson's contact information in the description under this video. So as soon as we're done recording it, for people who are watching it after it's posted on YouTube, you'll be able to just go right to the description underneath the video and get those two names. Those are the two people who are in a position to stop this. And as you know, legislation, we're in the first year of a biennium. So next year, this legislation could still come up. And, we have to keep our eyes on it. And we have to keep watching for this. If CSE is fighting every day to initiate social change through their values, which are not my values, that I would guess they are not your values. They are not the values of Christian parents, of patriotic Americans who want the autonomy of their local school districts and the autonomy of being able to raise their children as they see fit. Then we have to keep fighting here, and we will at the Child Protection League, and we hope that you'll join us and continue to fight with us. Barb, any last thoughts?
Well, one thing I was thinking too, when you look at the work of what Dr. Reisman has done, and you see all of this information that's being given to kids, she talked with the FBI, and they discovered that child molesters use 4 methods to groom kids for abuse. Let me just read these 4 methods to you, and keep in mind when you think of comprehensive sex education with this. Number 1, they demonstrate sex acts to children, giving instruction in how to masturbate, perform oral sex, and engage in intercourse. Number 2, child molesters lower the sexual inhibitions of children by showing pictures of children engaged in sex acts. Number 3, they desensitize children to sex by showing pornography to them. And 4, they sexually arouse children with pornographic images. All of that is included in the one book. It's perfectly normal. And this is in the curriculum materials for comprehensive sex education. We see that same approach that is used. And this kind of teaching desensitizes children and numbs their natural inhibitions. And these are inhibitions that protect them from potential predators. And this is what's being undermined in the comprehensive sex education classroom.
We should also point out to people that schools have their after-school clubs, gay straight alliances. These and the under the bullying bill, the requirement that that they teach anti-bullying, tolerance. It's not very tolerant, but that's in every subject in every grade. And so while we're talking about comprehensive sex education, we have to keep in mind that the ideology behind the bullying bill that is being promoted through the Minnesota Department of Education's toolkit, this ideology is permeating outside of just health class into other curriculum. And that creates an awful lot of peer pressure on children. So we have to be aware of that and keep our eyes open.
Michelle, you know what we need? We've had the sexual revolution, the homosexual revolution, and now it's time for a parental revolution, because parents need to reclaim their authority in the classroom and begin to protest this radical ideology that's being taught to the kids about sex and gender. And the important thing is for parents never to go it alone, because they will say you're the only one who's ever complained. But when you group together and you're stronger together, and we need parents to rise up to protect their kids right now before this goes any farther.
So let's wrap up. That's a really good point. Let's wrap up with just some key points. One, if you're in Minnesota, contact Senators Gazelka and Nelson, and their contact information is both on our Facebook page, and I'll post it in the description under this video, and tell them that the comprehensive sex education language in the Education Omnibus Bill is not a bargaining chip for them when they go into conference committee, that this is a deal breaker, that we do not want that comprehensive sex ed language in the final bill, and that it's not negotiable. Second, when you are go to our website, the Child Protection League, and sign up for our email updates. We don't send out a ton of emails, but we send out timely emails, and you'll get the information that you need to stay up to date. The third point is when you are fighting these kinds of battles, and you're taking on the school board or the superintendent or legislators, remember that when they use buzzwords like age appropriate, medically accurate, like Barb said, based on whose standards, and we've just completely displayed for you that what they think is age appropriate to a lot of people, including other experts, is not age appropriate and not helpful, not healthy for children. And then when you approach your superintendent, your school board members, don't go alone. Bring other parents with you. Go in a group, because there is a tendency to marginalize and to make you feel isolated. Like Barb said, nobody else is complaining. And so make sure, that you go in a group and you unite with other parents who are of like mind. Sorry. Barb, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me
up tonight, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.